be getting the notification a lot sooner.
I got it literally 5 seconds after I started it today.
Yeah.
There was extra.
It used to take hours for me to get it.
Really?
Now it's not heavy. I just bring it up.
Hey, Miss Kaylee, how did the goat show up then? She tried to, but as long as everything went through, it's just a few minutes. You are, well, that's great. What else did you do today? You had 7 on 10.
I did two dances, and I did a goat coaster, yeah, and I'm
Oh, I never enjoy that.
You're the one button.
yeah, I'm gonna start.
Okay, good idea.
The review is good.
I don't know, I thought it was
Yeah, the reviews are good.
Rotten tomatoes, so it's horrible. So now all the
Well, what's funny is it's estimated to have the biggest opening weekend in all history of the time. Even now.
rotten tomatoes.
No, I didn't think that.
Actually, video started.
Everybody else?
Well, they're just cleared up a little bit. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's a little bit.
I just said, I need to fit through there, and you're ignoring me.
Good, demonstrate patience.
But you ignored me.
That sounds horrible.
Well, remember, it does that sweet thing. They'll keep getting worse and worse.
No, we only did that as we were watching it while it was recording.
Like,
Oh, that's why. Okay. I thought you were watching.
Let's see, Diane said she's trying to watch it, she can't hear
She should hear it great since we installed that. Okay.
it. Does it sound like that to her?
I would, can you bring up the recording? Let's see what.
Did you write this? These messages are here?
Yes.
And I'm thinking about this.
I switched to Geico and saved a bunch of money on car insurance.
We
now
support videos is Geico, and so you can get to your video faster.
Next time, let's take the stairs.
I thought you wanted to see that. I think it's just showing that. I wonder if this thing it doesn't have the right.
but it's pulling off the wrong.
Yeah.
See, this is what's up.
Hey, guys.
What's that? That sounds much better. Yeah, I think you had the wrong speaker, wrong microphone stuck in that. Because I'm watching an older one. That sounds much better.
Did he get you in the fair?
Right, that's why.
I just selected that thing and make sure it's saved. It might have defaulted to that web key. We'll go ahead and get going here. I don't know if we've got others still coming up. Okay.
Do you have your?
Yeah, it sounds much better.
Like you're checking live.
Almost.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I think it defaulted to that way, that the webcam microphone. Hey, you're supposed to be downstairs. Go downstairs.
Sorry.
What? What are you doing here?
Okay, you've already got it working.
Okay.
You the instructor.
To be blunt, you guys are gonna kind of be guinea pigs for this a little bit. I've thought about this for a while, maybe preparing a course like this and then making it available to the community, just word of mouth. And the reason for that being is there are a lot of things we deal with in life that we never talk about in church. And there's maybe not super clear instructions. You cannot look up in scripture to see exactly how a checking account functions. Just you're bouncing me out, Kay. Yeah.
I want you to notice that I made sure all the windows were set, the blinds were set.
I appreciate that.
exactly Right.
I love you, man.
That's me too, that's like half my heart.
Where's the thing on that one, though?
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
they're
guess.
downstairs. Girl, I didn't even the story.
As long as they're both gone, we're fine.
I'm sure they're in the story.
There's a 3-foot hole in that wall, so it's on that wall. We just don't talk about this stuff. I have worked with Brethren somewhat in my time at the bank, and it just, even in that, it just made me realize how often we deal with loans and debt and checking accounts and credit cards and savings and retirement and insurance and buying stuff and all this stuff that in our society you don't deal with that often. I mean, you may buy, I don't know, in a 10-year time span, you may buy a couple of vehicles. I mean, you don't deal with it daily, but you have to kind of learn the hard way as you go. So I don't know why we don't talk about this kind of stuff, because the experiences around some of those things sometimes can provide some insight. And as I've stated before, I feel, you know, I memorized the book of James when I was 16 years old, and the second that I hit the passage, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all men generously without reproach, and we give it to him. I pray for wisdom and ask for that. And wisdom, I think, can be defined in a lot of different ways. I think in a lot of ways it allows you to, wisdom really is about analyzing the situation and somewhat predicting the future based on those things. You know, we see one of the prime examples in Scripture of an individual exerting wisdom is Solomon determining whom the child belonged to between the two mothers. And in that situation, I mean, there was no DNA tests, there was no birth certificates, none of those things were there. He had to ask questions, he had to analyze the situation, he had to consider those things in order to make a decision, make a wise decision. So in this situation, I feel like God has just given me this interesting array of experiences, and that's what they are experiences, but I've had them on both sides of the coin. I have been the customer, I've been the one recommending those type of things that we deal with. So my goal in this really was to essentially just provide details on those experiences and to arrange this course where I may be able to just provide information, more educational to families. And if we got them in here, you know, my intention is I'm not going to necessarily do a little Bible lesson with every one of these lessons, but I'm going to demonstrate the areas we do have in Scripture where we can draw a stewardly principle from Scripture in order to support, you know, the way we should act in a certain situation. So I'm probably going to design these to where a lesson is probably an hour and a half to 2 hours. So on these afternoon sessions, we'll probably do about a third of a lesson. Will be my intention. So I mean, we'll do this for a while. So today, you know, I was designing this first lesson, and I will warn you, today, I mean, I'm not going to hit on a ton, partially because up until just a couple days ago, I was planning on going through that study that Jim has, but in looking at that, I decided not to pursue that at the time. And this is something I want to put a lot of work and effort into. In fact, my plan is to eventually maybe be providing either, you know, pages of different sorts, worksheets and things that can be put into a 3-ring binder. I may have you guys bring one of those at some point. Again, my goal would be that the educational material provides you a resource that you can utilize in the future, or you can utilize to demonstrate to someone else or whatever the case may be. The goal, again, is how to deal with these things utilizing biblical principles that we have. Because we don't have the big instruction manual on how to deal with insurance, or how to go about buying a car, or how to go about selling a house, or is it okay to invest in the stock market or not? I mean, we don't necessarily have those things, but we have basic biblical principles combined with a very practical and logical approach that can help us in those things. So what I want to do specifically today is just kind of look at the agenda and mention to you guys, and I am going to record these too. I want to mention kind of what the plan is. That way, you know, obviously my hope is people would participate in this and hope it would have value. But I want people to kind of know what the plan is going forward, okay? So again, I want to go over the course goals and guidelines of really what we're going to work on, and we might get to these today. Mainly just some, I don't know, kind of some housekeeping rules on this type of stuff, because this is really hit home information stuff. I mean, obviously every week we address spiritual things that should be impacting our lives. But a lot of us, obviously, we go out of here, we deal with finances. We deal with all this stuff on a daily basis. We deal with, maybe we have a claim on our insurance. We deal with trying to budget income as it comes in and deal with the fluctuations. And, you know, there is there's that survival instinct in all of us, but we want to make sure that we're balancing and doing okay. We hear all the horror stories of people getting themselves in trouble with finances, and I will tell you right off the bat that financial distress in our culture is the most unforgiving thing, period. I mean, short of a major, major crime. I mean, you can hold, I'm pretty certain, Chad can confirm this for me. I mean, you can go into a gas station with a gun and rob it, and I think you would have about 5 years of dealing with that in prison. But if you mess up your credit, it's destroyed for 10 years. I mean, you can face some of those things for a very, very long time. It can be very unforgiving. So, and again, what stinks is I know so many people that they learn that through an experience. They learn that the hard way, and then they have to deal with it for so many years, and it's frustrating. So, but I want to hit on some of those guidelines. I want to hit on a way to provide feedback, to ask questions, the way in which I'm going to present things, and again, we'll do all that today. We'll look at some preliminary biblical principles. We'll probably do that next time. You know, all of this hinges around the idea of being good stewards of what God's given us. That's what it is. All this stuff is God's. Our money is God's. Our houses are God's. The cattle on 1,000 hill are God's. All the gold and silver is mine, declares the Lord. It's all God's. He gives it to us to utilize to His glory. So all of this is about stewardship, the appropriate way to utilize these resources in a manner that glorifies God, and to not do so haphazardly, but to do so responsibly. And we'll hit on some of those. We'll hit on Meet the Instructor. I'm going to warn everyone right now. I was the kid that, and when I say kid, I mean I was maybe 16, 17 years old, and obviously had come to the realization at that point that people don't talk about their finances. They're very, very, very private. I mean, something you don't do in our culture is ask someone what they make. You don't do that. You don't ask them how much debt they have on their house. You don't ask them any of those things. Those things are very, very private. If I am going to present this in a course format to people that are coming, I think it's very important for me to explain a little bit of my background and ultimately what gives me credibility to stand up here and say this stuff. So I don't want people to be uncomfortable in any way, but I'm going to show a little bit of my background, a little bit of my financial history and the things that I've dealt with. I don't mind putting that out there. I just, we're not used to that from a comfort level. I don't want anyone to think anything strange about that. It's just to demonstrate that the areas I have been in and dealt with firsthand, which, not only having been in that situation, but having worked with clients in all those varying financial situations of life, I think gives me some credibility to speak authoritatively on this stuff. Again, we'll probably do that next time. Some areas I want to hit on, and these were literally things that I kind of thought about, but a little bit off the cuff as I was preparing that this week. I'm open to looking at new categories, but for obvious reasons, I really want to focus on categories that I feel I can speak authoritatively on. I want to look at debt. I want to look at the different types of debt. And by types, there's varying types of debt that you can have that are maybe collateralized by something or that are uncollateralized by something. You can have debt just sitting somewhere that you have nothing to show for it or nothing linked to it. There is investment debt. There is debt that you use for purchases on something that can be used up and expendable. I want to go over the uses for debt. In every one of these categories, practically, you're going to see strategy, and that's really what I'm going for with this stuff, is I enjoy the strategic approach to finance. So I want to look at the strategy of debt. If you have debt and want to pay it down, what's the strategy to do that? If you want to utilize debt that is available in a positive, stewardly way, how do you do that? In what situations really does that work? The strategy is the big thing I'll look at, and then set some goals, which I would have you do personally. If you're in a situation where you have debt you want to abolish or get down, or you have those there, we'll line out. We'll have within those lessons just a little bit of we may have a worksheet or something that I can demonstrate up here that can help you get that down, help you work through that. The stock market. I've been securities licensed in the past. I want to hit on general product knowledge. In my experience, at least in this area, this may be different, maybe in a larger metropolitan area, but my experience in a rural area is most people, and if I were just to estimate off the people that I've talked to about the market in my adult life, I would say 95% of adults have no idea how the stock market works. Absolutely no clue of the options that are there. I think Christians, obviously knowing we should be good stewards, have trouble forming a correct opinion about these things because a lot of Christians don't understand. Is it gambling? Is it not? Is it investing? Is it not? What is it? With my experience there, again, I want to speak to that experience. I just want to provide some general product knowledge, the design and the purpose of those things, general investing strategy in the stock market. I want to talk about tax qualified plans. What that means is the government has all these different types of things that they have set up to try to help the citizens of the United States save utilizing these kind of vehicles. I want to talk about those very generally, very briefly, and then a little bit of strategy there. And again, that strategy within that section is going to be somewhat hypothetical. A lot of this is going to be presented hypothetical. My goal is to provide education and information based on my experiences, and you take with it what you wish to take with it. Savings and investing, is going to be a little bit different than the stock market. What types of saving is there? What would be the purposes of saving? What about investing? What's the idea behind investing? Most people hear the word invest, they think stock market. They don't understand the stock market, they think investing is bad. That's not the case, okay? Investing, and I'll confirm this in future lessons, but I'm pretty sure if you look at the definition of investing, the whole idea is putting money to work. Putting money to work. It is not an idea of sticking a quarter in a slot machine and pulling a lever. It's about putting money to work. Okay? So, and we have examples of that in Scripture right off the bat. I can point you to the talents. Okay, those individuals were told to put the money to work, to take what the master had granted them and to put it to work in a way. And I want to hit on the differences, the key differences, the key details around those examples we have in Scripture compared to some of the opportunities that we have for investing through channels like the stock market. Okay? So I want to talk about these. I want to talk about strategy. I want to talk about goals. I think people a lot of times are in a lot of turmoil because everywhere they hear through their workplace, on TV, everything, that if you stand a chance of ever retiring, you need to invest and be linked to the market. But then people have a bad experience with the market, or they don't understand the market, or they're freaked out of their trust level in dealing with people with their money. So they're just kind of left in limbo on, well, now what do I do? What's the plan? So I want to talk about some of those things. Real estate, I think everyone knows at this point, this is kind of my, I'd say my specialty. I wanted to at least present some of the details. I have no problem explaining or talking about the things that I feel I've been blessed with and some of the skills in dealing with real estate as an investment. I want to talk about basic analysis, just if you want to pursue that in any way, how you can analyze things, the strategy, how risk works in those things, and just basic tips. And even if you have no desire to pursue that, having that basic knowledge, so everything around you is owned by someone. That blows my mind sometimes. Drive through the countryside and you see a tree on a field, and that field's owned by someone. We live in a society of property ownership, and those things, normally people that own property seem to financially, at least, not be in stress for the most part if managed correctly. It is a good investment, can be a good investment. And kind of along with those other two items of savings and stock market, it's an alternative investment that I feel very strongly about. So banking, I wanted to hit on, I talked about looking at debt. I want to look specifically at credit cards. I don't think people understand credit cards, their purpose, their intent, some of the benefits of credit cards. I've been in credit card training before where I've had credit card trainers tell me things that the common public wouldn't believe, such as a bank makes more money on someone who uses their credit card for every single purchase in a month and pays it off without paying interest than they make on someone who maxes out a $3,000 credit card, cuts up the card, and makes minimum payments for the rest of their life at 20% interest. Bank makes more money if you're using the card because they get transaction fees on everything, 2 to 3% most of the time per month on those purchases, as opposed to 15% annual interest rate. Credit cards were never designed to be a debt tool. The problem is it really fed our society's desire for I want it now. And it became a debt tool and became a snare for a lot of people. It's never designed to be that. It was designed to be a purchasing tool. It was designed to increase security, to increase convenience, and so forth. And they actually reward you to use it in its proper fashion. Okay? Again, there's going to be a lot of times where I'm going to throw stuff out here about myself. I throw these things out again to speak to my credibility, not in any way to boast or anything of that nature. Everything that I feel that God's allowed me to figure out, God's allowed me to figure out. But my family yields upwards of $3,000 of free money per year from using a credit card for everything. We don't pay a dime of interest. Okay? So there are some of those benefits there if used in its proper way. But I want to talk about some of those details. At the same time, I want to talk about if you've gotten a situation where there's some debt there, some strategic ways to deal with that, some strategic ways to pay that down. Talk about basic product strategy. Budgeting, I want to hit on that. That's a great question everyone in the world seems to deal with. I mean, when I was in Belarus last time, Yulia asked me if I could do some, kind of financial presentation, which I told her I'd love to do, but on things like debt and things like investing, all of that can be very, 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 very different in a different society. Budgeting isn't really. Budgeting in many ways can be global across different cultures, different income levels, and all those things. I mean, it really is just a systematic and logical design to try to prepare yourself to spend money in an appropriate way. It's really just management of money. So I wanted to present some of those basic concepts and methods. There's a number of different methods out there, number of different individuals out there selling different methods and so forth. I want to talk about that for free. Information security, I wanted to hit on that a little bit. We dealt with that a lot at the bank. It is unreal. The people that are exercising effort out there to try to rip someone off. I mean, for some reason, the last couple of months, we've had more vehicles to sell than I've had my whole life. We sold my car and sold my work truck, and we're trying to sell a van. And you posted on Craigslist, and the first 4 responses are scams. First 4 like clockwork are scams. When I was at the bank, we dealt with tons of different kinds of scams, which I wanted to make you guys aware of. Stuff that just, almost, they seem so legitimate because you can't imagine a person being that evil. I mean, really. I mean, scam, one example is, individuals getting called telling them that their grandchild is in prison in New York City and is getting ready to be shipped to a penitentiary unless their bail of $2,000 is wired immediately. Grandchild's not in prison. Yeah. But you wire the funds, they're gone. And banks are, well, I'll talk about that somewhat too. There's benefits to big banks, little banks. One benefit of big banks, believe it or not, there are some, is that they are more heavily trained in recognizing some of those things. They're trained to ask those questions and try to prevent those things. In all the years I worked in the big corporate banking, there was one time where the customers snuck it past one of our tellers, where they performed the wire, were very, very discreet, because they don't want to tell people their grandkid was in prison, was very discreet, was very secretive, processed a very small wire done through the teller to through Western Union. And it was only when the lady came back 2 hours later to process another wire did my teller actually start asking, I'm allowed to ask, what's going on here? Why are you sending this? And the customer was furious. We refused to do the wire. And we just kept begging her, please go call your grandson. just call him, call his cell phone, and try to determine if this is legit. She ended up coming back and thanking us and apologizing. She lost $2,000. Just gone. So there's tons of stuff like that out there. It's amazing the people that are evil, trying to deal with those things. Scams that target elderly individuals, scams that target people that are on disability or dealing with other trials in life. They're the ones they target. What I mentioned about predators this morning. It's easiest to go after the weakest ones. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that, information security. Insurance. I was given a little bit of experience in insurance. I was licensed in property and casualty and life and health. I'll briefly talk about property and casualty. I don't think that's a big trial to anybody. I do want to talk a little bit about life insurance and explain the logic behind that. It may apply to some people, may not apply to some people. The life insurance, unfortunately, it is an industry that has turned itself into, it's almost like the car buying industry, where they generate so much distrust because of the way they approach something. I mean, a car isn't necessarily a bad thing to have to buy. I mean, it transports you, it has benefits to it. But the idea of buying a car from a entity selling a car is a pain and stressful to a lot of people because of the environment they create. Life insurance, in many ways, is the same way. And again, from my experience, there are many, 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 many situations in families and in people's lives where they have just generated a distrust or a distaste with life insurance that they have no desire to even speak about it. And it is, in my opinion, it is something that is more important than a lot of other things people have or people pay for. Depending on the situation, mostly, in my opinion, it deals with young families. Mostly, it is, just as kind of a precursor. I tell people, look at life insurance as income insurance. That's the best thing you can do. If I wreck my car insurance pays me. If I get sick, it's bad example. If I get sick, I pay a whole bunch of money, but one of these days my medical insurance pays a little bit. Okay. If the house burns down, my house insurance pays. If I become disabled, my disability insurance through my employer pays. Life insurance is if my income goes away that supports my family, it generates the income. It's the idea. That's the idea of life insurance. So I want to hit on that briefly, explain those details. Again, if it doesn't apply to you, it applies to someone you know. It applies to a family member, a friend. Car and house buying. Those are huge, huge things that people deal with, but we don't deal with them a lot. And everyone is so freaked out and so distrusting. There was a joke when I was selling cars that the biggest liars aren't car salesmen, the biggest liars are customers of car salesmen. Because it amazed me, even myself, who I was perfectly comfortable selling cars and being an honest, trustworthy person. The people came in so paranoid that I was going to lie to them or rip them off that they wouldn't be truthful with me. They wouldn't. I mean, you couldn't ask them a straight question at all. I mean, because you didn't get a straight answer because they had read from that magazine the top 10 things to do when you're buying a car. I mean, ridiculous stuff. I mean, I didn't realize till years later that if you look at one of those lists, top 10 things of what to do buying a car, most of those lists will tell you don't test drive the car. Don't test drive the car because that's a manipulative way to get you hooked and make an emotional decision. Well, let me tell a story about that. We had a guy one time came in, wanted a Chrysler 300, refused to drive the car. Absolutely refused. Was to the point, I mean, he was rude about it, which a lot of times you ran into because they were so paranoid of you being a jerk that they would, do the same. He was working with one of the best salespeople there, extremely professional, great integrity. They even got the manager involved and said, listen, you need to drive the car. I mean, just drive it. Just take it down the road and drive it to make sure it's up. No, don't even drive it. Don't even drive it. All right. Signed everything, got it all detailed, went in the finance office, got everything taken care of. drove away in the car, came back 20 minutes later. He was like, I can't drive this car. He's like, the design of the seat is like hurting my back. I have back issues. And I don't blame my boss one bit, but he's like, nope, you're done. I mean, we have done everything we can. We put expense and effort into this. We contacted financial institutions. It's been detailed. It's been, we told you over and over and over and over and over again, just to drive the $40,000 thing you want to buy to make sure that it's what you want. You know? But my point is, again, some of those things are there to try to protect people, which sadly is true, because not all car salespeople have integrity. Those people, that stereotype exists for a reason. So it makes people, my goal in this type of lesson would be to provide some basic details and information of, hey, here's how this works. Hey, if you're negotiating with a car salesman, here's where they're coming from, and here's what they may try to present. Here's the way that, in my experience, most people have no idea how a vehicle lease works. No idea. They just know it's from Satan himself. Satan himself created the vehicle lease, Well, again, that's from maybe a singular bad experience that they had or that a relative had, where it wasn't set up correctly in the first place because there was no education provided. A lot of times the car salesman doesn't have a clue how it works either. They just want to get a sale. So they recommend something that is inappropriate. And then the customer has to deal with that and runs into frustration with it. The goal with all this is to educate a little bit, educate on structure, how things work, so you can make informed decisions. Buying, house buying, same kind of thing. You run into regulations, you're dealing with mortgage officers that are 100% commission. They need to get paid. And there is a temptation coming from a position of 100% commission to do what you need to get things paid. The temptation is there to move it along and get it along and deal with it. Has anyone here ever seen the movie Glengarry Glen Ross? See that? I think I've talked about these friends that Rachel and I have made, and the husband should be a movie critic, because my whole life I went to movies, and I judge them completely by entertainment. Well, he's judging it by storytelling, character development, cinematography, the score, all this kind of stuff. And our friendship got to a point a couple of years ago where he was comfortable enough giving me his list of the top 70 movies, he's ever seen. And most of them were movies I never would have dreamed of seeing, because they're, in some respect, artsy movies, But one movie on there was Glengarry Glen Ross, and it amazes me how someone could create a movie that is really just a very simple cross-section of a reality in our society. And Glengarry Glen Ross has Al Pacino in it. I can't remember who else, John Lennon, I think. But it is literally just a cross-section of individuals who are in very high stakes real estate sales. And it's pretty much the whole movie is like a day in their life, is all it is. And to see the extents they would go to, and they are in a position where they are not motivated to act with integrity. They are trying to ultimately dupe people into buying real estate that they, and a lot, I don't think they specifically deal with timeshare. It's kind of in the same boat in a way. But it's having come from a sales field where I see them utilizing certain tactics that have been presented to me before that can be used appropriately or can be used very maliciously. It just really hit home to me. It was a pretty freaky movie just to see the extent certain people will go to make something happen for their benefit. But you can run into those things when you're dealing with purchasing a vehicle, purchasing a house. Thankfully, I'll tell you one benefit, guys, of being in a more rural area is you don't deal with that as much. I mean, you deal with that when you get to an area that's faster paced, you're going to deal with it more. But even in town, like, it cracks me up. Every one of our used car dealers are the most stereotypical car salesman I've ever seen. All of them. Tom Clark is the most. easy, laid back going guy. Ted Hunter, laid back, easy going guy. Bob Cavins is, I mean, they do not look like the stereotypical car salesman. Tim Schnelly does a little bit, but he's a good guy. You know, he's got the stuff back here and stuff. Hey, Sam. So that's one benefit that comes with that. Nevertheless, I think it's good to be aware of some of those details. Good to be aware of some things that can be part of those particular transactions that can be life changing. If you get one of those, and part of it too is I think if you have the education, the information, you can leave with a peace of mind. I had customers when I sold cars that bought cars from me that I made a decent commission. I made a good commission that was fair and could help support my family. And those people left a lot perfectly happy for all the years they owned that car. I had other people who just shredded us to pieces to where I made a minimum. I sold one time a $43,000 Jeep Commander and made $75 as a minimum commission because he chewed away the profit so much, and he left so mad because he felt he got ripped off. Wasn't true. There's no reason to think that, but I think part of this is from an educational standpoint. It gives us peace of mind. I mean, nothing stinks more than participating in a transaction that we leave feeling like, man, did I let myself get ripped off? You know, I mean, I think having some of this knowledge helps with some of those things. So that's what I have in wanting to present through this course. I'm open to other areas. These are all areas that I have had professional and I guess much experience in. Both, you know, I mean, I've had about as much experience as anyone else as a customer or as a individual on that side of the coin, but actually on the other side of the coin and dealing with being the professional, I guess, and offering these services and providing advice on these services. I've had a pretty decent amount of experience. I just wanted to hit on guidelines real quick and then we'll finish up here. I think we're already past a half hour. I have to throw out here, guys, I may even get to the point where I may have you sign a disclaimer. Serious, ultimately to protect the church congregation is what I'm thinking. It was always weird to me in every aspect of finance I was in. Titles are very, very important. Like I think when I worked at New York Life, I think I was I could list myself as a financial consultant. I could never say the word advisor because of my current certification. Okay, the bank didn't want us to be advisors. We were not, you know. That's really important. This is not advice officially. Okay, none of this is advice. I tried to word that this is information presented, designed to be basic facts and logical strategy. That's what this is. It largely comes from my experience, which as I'll mention in a second, I am only going to present authoritatively if I know with 100% confidence that is the way it works. Okay? But it ultimately comes from my experience. It is not advice. And if I did offer this as a community type course, I would have people sign disclaimers. Yes.
Based on that, do you want this going across to you?
Yeah.
Where anybody can see it?
Yep. Sodom and Gomorrah was reduced to ashes because they were homosexuals.
No, I mean, you're
what else can I
talking
say?
about the advisor issue.
Right.
Do you want that in that format?
It's
for
fixed with
somebody?
a disclaimer. It's not advice. It's like talking to Uncle Billy. Said, don't listen to Uncle Billy. Everyone's Uncle Billy doesn't know what they're talking about. Everyone knows everything financial from their Uncle Billy. And Uncle Billy usually isn't clear with stuff. No, I'm not worried about that. If that became an issue, I would deal with it. But if I was presenting this as a public forum, first of all, I wouldn't be recording that. And second of all, people would have the opportunity to make what they choose to make with it. It's not professional advice. Information given in the levels of authority possessed by the instructor. What I'm saying here is I will present things and make it very clear if I'm speaking authoritatively with 100% confidence in the accuracy of what I'm saying, or I may present information from a basic experience standpoint with suggestions. Okay, I may not, I may not know the absolute details of a specific type of mutual fund sold by JP Morgan Chase. Okay, so I'm not going to tell you if one's going to be better than the other, or to do this or to do that. However, I do understand and am very familiar with the design of many mutual funds to meet certain objectives based on where people are at in their investing or where they're at in their life. Those type of things I'm going to speak, I'll speak authoritatively from the approach to those tools, but not specifically on something like a particular product or service. If someone asks me a question about something, I'm going to be very forthcoming in the level of my knowledge on that particular topic. If I've had brief experience with that and can offer a suggestion in how to approach that and acquire information in a logical and accurate way, I will offer it from that standpoint. But I will only speak authoritatively on things that I have been and feel an authority in regards to. Okay. Questions and comments? I figured Russ would get a kick out of this. I said, I'll answer those clearly with the level of authority, because I already said that, didn't I? Disagreements can be briefly discussed, but I'll address them outside of class. So I will not take disagreements. If you have, and here's why I say this.
Wise mouth.
I did a tiny itty bitty version of this briefly for the men of this congregation many years ago. Okay. There many times when it comes to financial knowledge, well, I have it on the next slide. Nope. I do. For some reason, financial knowledge is one of those things that is a great token of pride for many people. I assume everyone has, not necessarily a grandpa, but a relative, maybe of older age, or a friend of older age, that is always more than willing to give financial advice. And in some regards, there is experience there, okay? Usually individuals that will provide that do have, they have a level of success in those things, okay? But with financial information, there often comes some pride. So my point is if you have a blatant disagreement in something I have said, I want it addressed, but I don't wish to discuss it within the class format. And I would encourage you, if you have that disagreement, just make sure you're making a confident assertion about something you're confident about. Because again, I've had many people before in the banking industry and in my business analysis and those things that I've done that are very confident in the way things work, and they are wrong. It's just simply not the way it works. But they have come to that conclusion through hearsay, through conversation with people that they felt were authority on a particular topic when that was not the case. I'm very convicted against that. I'm not going to speak confidently about something I'm not confident about, but others are not that way. So I encourage you, the things discussed will address information most often kept very private. I don't want it to be a touchy sort of thing. That's why I want to do this in a lecture format, okay? Never am I going to pinpoint someone and dive into their finances. I just want to provide this in a general format, in an instructive sort of way, but at the same time, any participant in this class, if you feel that they're constantly disagreeing with what I'm saying, presenting this to the church congregation, get with me and we'll talk about it. If it was me presenting a community class, I would say if it's not beneficial to you, then just don't. Information provided authoritatively comes from multiple experience from all sides of the situation. I'll get into my credibility at some point, but if I'm speaking authoritatively about something, it's because I've been an authority on it or I've dealt with it from different sides many times. The nice thing I love, I gripe quite often in my business because I deal with hundreds of vendors, and it seems like weathermen and appraisers get a bad rap because they get to guess for a living. And in a lot of cases, I would contend they have no accountability. This last week cracked me up. I wanted to spray for weeds. And I knew if I was going to spray for weeds, I wanted it to be hot and sunny for a few days. Monday, I checked my weather thing. Okay? It's going to be sunny today, thunderstorm the rest of the week. Okay? Not spraying today. Tuesday, changed. It's going to be sunny today, thunderstorm the rest of the week. Wednesday, it's going to be sunny today, thunderstorm the rest of the week. Thursday, it's going to be sunny today, sunny, no clouds, the rest of the next 4 days. I sprayed on Thursday, rained that evening. And then it rained the next day, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit. Just enough to wash away stuff. But I mean, they get to guess for a living. Well, people joke about them, but from my experience, and I can say this, my dad's a contractor, but in a lot of ways, the skilled tradesmen have to work in the same way. HVAC, plumbing, electrical. You know, Russ made a comment one time, which I think is perfectly accurate, that in a lot of those industries, they are trained to exchange parts until the problem is fixed. But they don't necessarily have the ability to fully diagnose the problem. So I can tell you many stories of where I have just paid money and paid money and paid money for them to try to guess and fix. Well, finance is very different. One reason I love finance is it is often, if there is a problem, there is a very, very clear solution, especially from debt analysis. When it comes to dealing with debt, it is simple numbers that are accurate every time. There is no unknown in accomplishing those goals, which I love. So, you know, when I speak authoritatively, it's not something that I'm giving my opinion on and conjecture that you should try. If I'm going to speak that way, it's going to be about things that are absolute, very clear. Okay? Consider information provided in light of your personal experiences in an effort to gain a greater understanding. You know, everyone here has experiences with this stuff. As I present it, it may contrast a little bit. You know, a statement I may say not all car salesmen are wolves. Well, the only ones you've ever dealt with are wolves. So that may seem a little difficult to comprehend, but just, again, take what I talk about in light of your experiences, and my encouragement would just be to take that information, apply it, and see if you can make it beneficial for yourself. Information is provided from a biblical stewardship approach. Some of the things I'm going to tell you about investing, about dealing with debt, about utilizing debt, about utilizing different financial resources, I have done all those things from a very, what would be called an extremely conservative approach, because I feel that's the method that we get from a stewardship standpoint. You know, you can find people in the church that tell you to invest in certain kinds of investments. I think from a stewardship approach, those investments are gamble and not investing. You know, that's where you'll see people with different opinions. The things that I'm going to present to you, again, from more of a general strategy, come from an idea of strong biblical stewardship. You know, we'll talk about risk in a couple of different areas. Risk sometimes doesn't mean risk. People get confused. They hear the word risk when it comes to investing. Risk sometimes doesn't necessarily mean the risk of loss. It means the risk of fluctuation. You know, an individual's comfort level with the ups and downs of that money while it is working. But there are situations where there is an intense risk of loss. And in those situations, I'm not, as a Christian, with some of the biblical principles where I'll look at, I don't see that being encouraged by God. That is the line. Okay? There is gambling, and there is putting money and resources to work. So the question is where the line's at. So everything I'm going to talk about is what I feel is supported through Scripture as proper investing, not gambling. But everything I talk about is going to be from that approach. It's going to take into account the other parties. It's going to take into account the other individuals. It's also going to take into account your ability to participate in the church. Our resources are God's, and we're told that those resources are needed to make things work for the kingdom. The way Simeon can function. You know, some of those things. My ultimate hope and goal would be that you utilize some of these things to further your ability to aid the church, financially or through other resources that you might gain from utilizing these things. Any questions, comments? Sorry, something we're gonna deal with, because I like this stuff, so I may be talking and take it longer than I intended to do, so. Anything at all, any concern, I don't want anyone to be blindsided here, okay? Again, I am never going to ever pull out an individual and inquire, request in any fashion or even have them allude to their financial situation. I hope this will be a general presentation style. Is there any concerns? Is there anything about this at all? Okay. Next week, I'd like to hit on me a little bit. Or 2 weeks. This is a congregation where mostly everyone sitting here, saw me grow up. And Jesus warns against that in a number of ways, as sometimes being a hurdle within a hometown, a home garden. This is stuff that I think I can prove pretty strongly I can speak authoritatively on, and I'll do that somewhat next week. Again, not anything that God has been willing to give me and my family, He's been willing to give me and my family. But I think a lot of that has come through exercising His principles in making financial decisions and financial choices. So I hope that takes care of that and demonstrates to you guys some of where I'm coming from in both extremes of the spectrum. So, if there is nothing else, rest of my brain force, and we'll close out my list.
Well, then Lord, we just come before you this afternoon, we thank you for gift, your word, where we can draw principles to help us live a victorious life. Just pray that you will be with us. Look at these things, Lord, so that we, not that we can be richer, but Lord, that we can be more for you. Thank you for Matthew for his share and effort to put together these studies. Be blessed in Jesus' name.
Thanks, guys.
No, I have all this is mine. Yeah. But this morning I got Richard. Now, who's just been asking me this all day? Is there, she come back to my house?
I'm not going yet. I'm gonna take these down here.
Now, just getting right up here.